I welcome you all. Sorry about this annoying fan I'm holding, but it's too hot right now in Greece. Climate change. In Prespes, we were 2 days ago. We spent a week in Prespes for the walking encounters, and it was such a fantastic time. We enjoyed ourselves. We had lovely walks, workshops, very interesting discussions about walking arts, about different aspects of it. So we continue our sort of open, let's say, program with these talks, these informal talks and getting together, if you don't mind me saying that. And today our topic is a topic close to my interest as well, is walking in the Anthropocene, this new word that came to our life the last around 5 years or so. And let's have a small introduction. Walking arts today has become a response of the deep environmental global crisis. It's better to use the term crisis than change, because crisis, we understand that it is a crisis. Walking is one of the ways, one of the keys to deepen our understanding of how the planet works, because we obviously have forgotten how it works, living in our closed environments in the cities. We definitely need to be more ecological, or we won't be at all, us and our kids. By walking, as we did in Prespes, we explored our beautiful environment again, our nature, our planet, and we began to reevaluate it. We can try to understand what connects us between ourselves and between nature. All these synesthetic qualities of nature, of the sights, the sounds, the fauna and the flora that we many times we take it for granted. And we can sort of experience all this profound impact that has on us before it's too late. Our wonderful panelists include some people that I already know, some of the very significant individuals in the field of walking arts, and not only there. I say hello to Mar Alzamora. She's from Panama. She's in the center of the globe. She's a musician, a sound artist, a writer, and an educator, multifarious personality. She enjoys exploring the ephemeral qualities of the cities through sound walks. She organizes the Ars Amandi International Poetry Festival and is involved into the Latin American experimental music platform MuseXplat. She's studying for a Masters of Contemporary Arts at the Simon Fraser University in Canada, and at the same time for a Masters of Education. That's amazing, 2 masters at the same time, at the University of Panama. Hello to Simona Vermeire from Romania. Simona holds a PhD in comparative literature from the University of Minho in Portugal, and she's a postdoc fellow, like me, researcher in the ontology of plants. That we would like some more information on that topic. Sounds extremely interesting. She researches the connection between literature, arts, sciences, plants and animals, and the concept of consilience. She has been involved with the project of Made of Walking in Greece and Cyprus, and in our project, the Walking Arts Encounter, in the last session, in the first actually session in 2019. Hello to Stephanie. Stephanie is in the UK. Where are you based, Stephanie, right now?
Well, I'm from Edinburgh, but I'm currently in the Cairngorms in Scotland in the Highlands.
Amazing. That's fantastic. I studied in Glasgow. It's deep in my heart, Scotland, the whole area. Stefan is interested in natural process of ephemerality and fluidity and how we connect with a place, a very important thought, and the threads between us and the environment. And walking art is one of her disciplines, and the force between her installations, her land art practices, and what nature can invoke in us creatively as we open up ourselves through walking. Chris. Hello, Chris. Chris Omni. She's from the US. Where are you based right now, Chris?
I'm in Morristown, Tennessee.
Ah, that's nice. And I can see the beautiful landscape behind you. And Tennessee is a place that personally I would love to go pretty soon. I've got some friends there as well. She's an eco-spiritualist, a TEDx speaker, a healer, a storyteller, an artist, and a Black woman's researcher. She holds a master in public health, and her doctoral work is in arts education, exploring nature as a site of self-restoration. She's a teacher and a treacher, which is very beautiful, and a hugger, a professional, but for free, for all of us. I can sense her positive energy from so many miles away through the screen. We're used to the screens, but I feel even through the screens we can get the vibe. Exactly. So her deep interest is also light, and the light that emanates from the female sex as well. She talks about luxocracy. She talks about being a light tower. I can see this light emanating. I feel it, and it's very beautiful that we all feel the warmth of it. Through her personal family experiences, she honors her past, her ancestors, far and close, and her pride of being a lady of color, which is very beautiful. And now we're moving to the key features of walking arts. Fred Adam from Spain and Geert Vermeire from Belgium. Fred is the founder of the Locative Media portal and the GPS Museum, and co-creator of the collaborative mapping platform GeoMap. See GeoMap. Also the creator of the Deep Time Walk app and the Jungle-Sized app. These two very important apps for getting us closer to an environment, a wild environment, such as the Amazon rainforest. That later he can talk to us how he brought that to the Times Square and how did people there feel about seeing something that they hear but they haven't experienced. What can I say about Geert? I'm not going to say anything. Let's keep him. No, he is a curator, a poet, an interdisciplinary artist. For me, I think Geert is a homo universalis, in a sense, in the medieval sense of the word. He is also a co-creator member of CGeomap, notours.org, escoitar.org, and a co-coordinator of Soundwalk September. He promotes ethical actions and ecological activism, which I'm very glad to know because I'm sort of an activist myself, as we all probably are in some way or another. He's the managing director of the art platform, the Milena Principle, that we know very well in Greece because he appeared with his entourage many times in Platforms Project, a big exhibition in Athens. He's a founder of Made of Walking, this important organization that co-organized the Walking Encounters conference last time in 2019, and this year that was a very big success. And of course, he's a coordinator of the e-Amazonia, an interdisciplinary residency in the Amazon rainforest. Geert, has it started? Is it running, this residency?
Unfortunately, it was cancelled because of the pandemic, but we still keep it in our hearts to go there with a group of people, to be together, to walk together. More than ever, as you know now, that with the Brazilian government, the rainforest is disappearing every day at an extremely high rate. But I think we share all this love for the rainforest, and we need to do as much as we can as artists to make people aware of what is happening now in Brazil. But going to Brazil is on this moment, as you know, impossible. And we hope for better times.
We hope people learn to vote well and not to spend their votes in people that don't deserve. That's the only thing we can do, since all these people, even in Greece, even there, and other places in the world, are a result of elections, democratic. Sometimes not very democratic, but at least it is a process of democracy, and people sometimes get carried away and they choose the wrong persons. And last but not least is Rich Blundell, with a solid scientific background and in science and philosophy, an ecologist at heart and cultural communicator. His interests are in the Anthropocene, in ecological identity and ecological intelligence. And he has established OICA. OICA is a community of scientists, artists, and storytellers and poets dedicated to manifest ecological intelligence and how we can realign culture that obviously lost its line with nature. OICA is a call for art and science to change, how beautiful is that, the climates of our minds. Because if we don't change the climates of our minds, we cannot influence the climate we're living in. So for me, just a few words. I'm an art historian. I've studied in Glasgow, my master's, Glasgow University. My PhD was in University of Thessaloniki, and I've just started my postdoc research on the elements of natural ground, the things we find on the ground, and how these things can become a work of art. I'm part of the Greek section of the International Art Critics, IKLAS. I'm a member of the board, and I'm writing for culturenow.gr, my art reviews. And as I told you, I'm an environmental activist for zero waste movement and against waste incineration. And I'm currently into some legal battles with a company in Greece, an international, a Swiss company actually, that cement company that perform this action. So we can begin our wonderful discussion, our friendly discussion, walking in the Anthropocene. And what does it mean to us, the Anthropocene, as a word that has become almost like in Greece there is a phrase, it has become like a candy. We have it in our mouth quite a lot, but do we realize what is the Anthropocene and how can we deal with it? We can change it to our better. Maybe Mar would like to begin, because she creates these beautiful soundscapes that you get lost in them. And these soundscapes are the sound of the Anthropocene, I think.
Well, talking about the Anthropocene, I go straight to a relationship with the cities, because at least myself live in a urban area, and Panama City is quite chaotic and hectic. Panama City had a long history of relationship with water. And I talk about relationship because for me, Anthropocene has to do with that, like our relationship as humans with our environment, and what do we do with that to their environment, and how do we dialogue, and how do we include other beings and expressions of life into this conversation. So sometimes in urban areas, we tend to forget that other expressions of life exist and they should be included and taken in consideration. So specifically in Panama City, we have the Pacific Ocean right by our city. Also, the Panama Canal basically trespasses and cuts Panama in two. So we have this commercial relationship with water, and we have forgotten of what bodies of water really mean in this city. Because even though we have the Pacific Ocean and Panama City has 8 different urban rivers, all of them are polluted, and the Pacific Ocean close to our city, it's also polluted. Contrary to other areas in the countryside of Panama in which beaches are in a better situation. But right here is very complicated. So when I started thinking about this project, actually, I started thinking about this project like long time ago, and it has to do with Anthropocene. When I was in the deep listening certification. And through deep listening, I started to connect with bodies of water in a deeper sense. Because I started thinking myself as a body of water also. I'm not away from bodies of water like ocean, river, lakes, but I am also a body of water. And I should embrace that idea, and I should also be grateful of, belong to this world in this shape, and also being part of the water conversation. So in Anthropocene, I pretty much believe that, for example, if we're in a community and we're a human community, and I guess we will talk about some other things later on. But if we're in a community, humans, animals, the air, bodies of water, insects, and all of that are part of the same community. And all of us are at the same level. Like there's no hierarchy of like humans being on the top or whatnot. It's like a horizontal living that we're having right here, right now in this planet. And truth walking, and walking is so important, or even more in urban areas, because in urban areas we use a lot of transportation and cars and whatnot, and we disconnect from the other expressions of life that are around us, and actually that we're related to, but it's kind of like a blindness, that we have, even though they're there. Most of us, we cannot see it, or we forget to see and to feel, like from the affectual part of ourselves. So walking is very important to like relate to the rest of expressions of life, and to rethink what is our space and what is our position in this planet and in our community. So yes, I could go on and on, but I think some other people have something to say. But later, I would like to talk about the project itself and whatnot. But in the meantime, that's like my position in terms of Anthropocene.
What you said, being a body of, you become the river, you become the water. For me, it brings a lot ideas of reach as well. Reach. How do you, most of your works, as I saw in the videos, is like you become part of nature. What's your ideas about being a part of the natural world?
Are you talking to me?
Yes, Rich.
Oh, thank you. But first, I just want to say how amazing you are. I've never met you. I don't know you. I can absolutely feel all of your energy coming through this computer screen. I've never had this experience before, when someone's energy comes through so loud and clear. So thank you. And
that's fantastic.
And I'm not just saying, it's amazing. And I have to also say that I feel like this gathering is kind of guided by a feminine leadership, and it feels really good to be in it. And so I'm just looking forward to that. And so many things that you've said. You said it sort of just under your breath, talking about how the Anthropocene is a crisis, and we should think about it that way. I can't stress that enough, that this isn't just about hotter temperatures or drier conditions. This is about the collapse of the global ecosystem and possibly the end of humanity. It's not a small deal, and we should be paying attention. So anyway, thank you. Now, what was your question? I'm so sorry.
I just said that I felt that your practices are very close to Mars, the way she feels part of this ecosystem. She is the river. She feels like the polluted river. She takes on her even the pollution that the people have inflicted in their environment.
Yeah, and to hear that phrase, a body of water, the way you just said it, I had never heard of it. I had never heard it like that. I as a geologist and someone who works with like maps and things like that, I talk about a body of water all the time, but it had never connected like you just did. So I might use that if you don't mind. That line,
It's
a
a
body of
physical
water.
body. Yes.
Yes, we are a body of water. So yeah, my practice is really about boundary dissolution and seeing ourselves as inextricable, as intimately tied and intimately a part of nature. And my work it's kind of intellectual in some ways because I do a lot of telling of the story of the cosmos, the science, which is kind of a conundrum because the science actually supports everything that you're saying. Like the spiritual response that we have to science, to nature, is actually a scientific insight, at the same time. And I don't mean there's any one particular insight from science that I can prove that to be, the case. But the fact is that the whole of science is saying that exact same thing in every aspect of what it studies. And so, But in terms of like the walking, I was thinking about walking as a practice and how perfect it is as a practice to reconnect us. And when it really becomes clear to me is when I ride my bike instead of when I walk. When I ride my bike, it becomes an experience of riding a bike. It becomes exercise. It becomes about the technical, and it always becomes about the bike. My focus is always, is the bike going to survive? Am I going to get a flat? Is the chain going to come off? How fast am I going? Are my brakes going to work? But when I'm walking, it's a completely different paradigm where it's just perfectly tuned to what we're built to do, which is to move at that pace through this world so that we can fully experience it. And that's really just what came to mind as I've been sitting here listening.
It's interesting how you utilize your science background and you speak about science. Like I saw it in the video when you explain the Starry Night by Van Gogh, and the way you spoke how the natural science, universal science, how we're all made up of elements, and the same elements that the painter used to portray a work of art. And I just found that very poetic.
Thanks. Well, I was just going to say, I just released that, and I kind of took a big chance because toward the beginning of it, I make the pronouncement that I think that I see Van Gogh's work, especially The Starry Night, in a way that no one else does, which is that's just a cocky thing to say, that I see it like no one. But when I really look at my analysis of it from, bringing in the cosmos and the fact that consciousness itself is a manifestation of electromagnetism, but which lightning is a manifestation of electromagnetism, and so is sunlight, and so is the cosmic microwave background radiation. I don't hear anybody else making that critique or that interpretation. So hopefully I won't get too beat up for saying that. But thanks for noticing that.
I catch the light from you and I pass it on to a master of light, which is Chris. Tell us about your light, Chris.
Thank you, Faye. I absolutely want to tie in to Mars' comment about relationships. My relationship with nature really started to develop on June 1st or around June 1st of 2020, when my husband and I moved halfway across the nation from Topeka, Kansas to Tallahassee, Florida during a pandemic. And not knowing anybody in this new town and knowing that I'm a hugger and I need to connect and I strive, in that space of relationships, that I try to reconnect with my people back home virtually by holding group exercise classes. And my past includes personal training and group exercise instruction. And when Rich talked about riding the bike and thinking about the mechanics of the bike and the exercise, that's what I was trying to hold on to. that old piece of me. And I also did walking classes. We did a bike class. We did a little bit of everything. But moving into this new city and trying to find new ways to develop a relationship during a pandemic was a challenge. So what I did was I decided to commune with Mother Earth. I put my feet on the ground and I walked. And walking around the neighborhood, getting comfortable with that landscape, taught me how to build relationships with nature. That finding a tree that I can connect with and say hi to every morning, finding a moth that would land on my porch and welcome me and I can welcome her, watching squirrels play and I could see their excitement and the love that they had for each other. This was a totally new experience for me, and it tied into spirituality in a way that I never expected. That being a Black woman, that the dominant narrative is around being Baptist, at least in my family. That my dad, my mom, my grandma, all that is like my inherited religion that, of course, I went to church. Of course, I got baptized. But that connection, that deeper level of spirituality was missing until I started developing these relationships with nature and Mother Earth and being able to identify with a tree, seeing the roots as they ran deep. My roots run deep with my dad, who's still here and could have lost his life to COVID. My roots run deep with my mom, who died in 2016 from a 26-year battle with cancer. My roots run deep with my grandma, who passed a long time ago, but it was because of her words that were written inside of a Bible that got me to think about the relationships with nature. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that my grandma was institutionalized. And I believe after reading her writing, it was because of her relationship with nature and people not understanding during those years. That on April 16th, 1973, before I was born, Grandma wrote that sun is true witness. She also wrote that don't be afraid of trees. We will never leave you. She wrote about wait and listen, that Uncle Sam will tell you more. And I was very curious about who Uncle Sam was. I'm like, I don't know all my family, but I've never heard of an Uncle Sam. But the more I read, I realized that her Uncle Sam was sun, stars, and moon. She wrote it later on in her entry. To be a Black woman and in that era and have a relationship with nature, that was not, to me, probably not acceptable. And she was institutionalized. So what I'm doing now with my walk of eco-spirituality is giving permission. I want people to understand that they are not crazy for hearing nature, that they can build relationships with Mother Earth in ways that are unique and honest and true to them, that I am exercising a freedom that my grandma did not have. So being able to be a part of this conversation of planetary walking allows this platform to go out internationally to let people know, listen to the landscape. Let your light shine. And this goes back to kind of that biblical piece. Let your light so shine so that others may see that you are a lighthouse to thee. This whole experience with nature allows us to tune in to the higher parts of ourselves. The relationships that we build with other people along the way, it ties into why we were even placed here in the first place. And if you listen to my TED Talk, I created 3 paths along this route of communing with Mother Earth and building these sites of restoration through nature. Path 1 was connection to self. I just completed a cross-country spiritual sojourn by myself, leaving from Florida going out to California, going back right now, I'm in Tennessee with my dad, and pretty soon I will be with my husband tomorrow in Florida. But this cross country was spiritual, and it was path number one, connection to self. By being with each and every one of you today, you're allowing me to walk in that path number two, which is connection to others. Connection to others allows, especially in this virtual platform. I'm all the way here in Florida. I'm sorry, I'm here in Tennessee. Y'all are all over the world, but we are still connecting through a common thread of nature, which is path number three, connection to nature. So I have plenty more to say about the TED Talk and the three pathways of radical self-restoration, but I'll turn it over to somebody else. And thank you for the opportunity.
Wow,
Such
thank you, Chris.
powerful.
Thank you. I
That
kind of
was a
want to
tour
just
de
give her a
force.
quick hug. All right.
Oh.
That was a virtual hug.
Yes. Thank you, love.
It was a tour de force, totally. And what you said about your grandmother, I mean, there's still, even now, even in 2021, there are sort of witch hunts happening of people that they are not conforming with the ideology of waking up, working, eating, consuming, and sleeping. That's what brings us here together, a cry against this path of life that they may make us to believe, and to believe that this is our raison d'être, that is not.
And people, people need to understand that they're not by themselves, that there are
Yes.
other people of this beautiful tribe that understand and get it. So that's why this element is so essential.
And what you said about moving around and going from place to place and establishing this beautiful route across America is very close to what we felt when we were in Prespes, that we were in the middle of a lake between three nations, and we felt that the lake doesn't have borders. I mean, why do people put borders, and how easy is not to categorize ourselves as anything, any categories. Here we are, as you said, we're one, we're as one. But it's very strong. I don't know where to pass the ball, but as we say in Greece, but I think I'll pass the ball to Geert and his companion Adam to talk to us about how they use technology, and they use these different apps in trying to bring us all together. The CGO map, and tell us more about how you use technology for a good purpose.
I really have the desire first to go back to the river a little bit. And I have a river, we have two rivers in my area, in the area where I'm living in Spain, in the Mediterranean coast. And when I see the river, and when I see when it's polluted, where very few people comes here, it's really a bad shape. So it reflects very well, very clearly our relationship as a community with nature, with the river. So, it just gives you a picture of what is this relationship. And it's dominated by the dominant narrative of the Anthropocene, which disconnects us from the river. So the river is a big symbol. It's so important to take care of the river. And what's beautiful when we are walking along the river, you have a lot of birds. And it's just a question to open up your senses. Deep listening, as we say, deep looking, spending time, listening to the river. And it's there, it's available and it's free. And there is so much knowledge. So what I really understood at the end with the use of technology and We can talk about technology, of course, but at the end, what is really interesting, it's an opportunity for people through the use of locative media, location-based technology, to understand how important and vital it is to be connected in space and time, in the place where we are living, and to get back this knowledge from nature and rediscover our ecological identity of the place where we are living now. So yes, that's really at the end. I did 15 years of project with technology. You were commenting about, we did a project in Times Square where we recreated a reconstruction of the sound of the rainforest in 3D and so on, which are beautiful project with a very amazing sound artist. But at the end, what is very important from technology is to go back to the place and to the relation to the people, with the people, the local people, the local community, open our senses, learn the language of birds, know the insects, the spiders, know everything you can, every life form, more and more and more and more, you know. And I really believe what is very interesting is opening the opportunity for environmental regeneration through art practice and through the use of technology. So that's really my feeling about technology at the end. It has to end up with this real relationship with the community and nature.
How can this be viable, environmental regeneration? How can you succeed into that? How are you going to get involved with the local authorities and try to persuade them to?
Yeah. So, for example, in my case, I discovered I'm living in a wetland, beautiful wetland, so much bird. It's very special in Spain. It's a very important place. But people don't really, some people, of course, are passionate by birds, but not so much people, you know, it's not very well known. And in my village, they built a wooden hut, which is a natural nature house. But it was abandoned during 10 years. No activities, it was broken, the windows were broken. So what I just asked to the local community and to the mayor of the village is to let me access to this wooden hut and open the door. So what I do is that I just did something very simple, which is let people enter this space as a symbol for a conversation about nature. So the place is always empty. I love it, you know, because it's a place of possibilities. Then there is, when I go, I just put a table and 2 chairs, 3 chairs, and wait for people to appear. And I met amazing people, you know. It was really beautiful. So this idea of environmental regeneration through the use of technology, because I did also locative apps and all this stuff for the community, is that at the end, if you want to do environmental regeneration, you have to do a social regeneration. Because if you don't involve the community, you do nothing. What you have to try to find the way for people to see the beauty around us. And then if people is enlightened and electrified with this feeling, this, you know, this connection, then we can expand to environmental regeneration. But if we don't do that, it's impossible because people don't see it. Then what you have to do is to see and listen. So that's a very cool experience I'm doing a lot also involved with the project OICA and which is really, really involved also in this process.
Fred, what you said is amazing because through ecology, you managed to regenerate the concept of demos. Demos in the ancient Greek history was where democracy started, where people used to choose a place and get together and solve their problems in an appropriate and civilized way. And ecology can do that, can recreate a demos, a place, an agora, a place that we all get together and be able to to find problems and solutions to our ecological problems, which I find it fantastic. And saying that, I come from a city, Athens, that had 4 rivers, 4 ancient rivers, ancient river gods, that the people dried them up totally, completely, and now there's none, and that's a terrible, wound into the Athenian landscape.
That's the
So,
oikos, which is
Oikos,
feminized
oikos.
by the Oika project.
The Oika project, exactly. We can speak. Shall I go back to the Oika project and his creator? You can tell us something about it.
Sure. I mean, I really would love to listen to Steph, or someone else too. I mean, but I'll just say briefly about Oika. This is it's kind of an emergent. I don't want to call it an organization because it's not. It's more like a movement. Hopefully, it's an idea that's about using the power of art to communicate the wisdom of science and create the conditions by which we remember our earthlingness, basically. It's really a widely kind of loosely distributed thing. Fred and Geert and Steph and other people around the world, but lately it's been about art. Really, I've been on a very steep learning curve, learning about the history of art, the philosophy of art, the economics and the politics of art, as a way of tapping back into it, really using it. And I mean that, like, using art to have deeper conversations about ecological intelligence, about ecological identity. That's really what Oika is about. And it's going wherever it will go.
You give us a very nice piece of the thread to pass over to Stephanie and talk about ecotherapy and how wonderful is this term. Can nature heal us, really?
Well, I already feel like all of you are ecotherapists in your own right anyway. It's a term, I suppose. It's an umbrella term, but listening to you all and hearing your stories and the way you engage, you're all ecotherapists anyway. It really is around deepening our relationship and our understanding of nature, but also with ourselves. And it's been beautiful to hear your stories as well, and this braiding that's taken place. That I speak a bit about that in my work, the braiding between ourselves and our environment, and the inner worlds and the outer worlds. And ecotherapy is very much about merging those two. And you can access that through walking in our environment and allowing things to surface for you without too much expectation. Paying attention to what's happening inside of ourselves is also a reflection of what's happening outside of ourselves. And to note to what you said, and Rick and Fred, around the climate of ourselves and regeneration and these spaces that exist that are often abandoned. I'm thinking of your hut, Fred, and the abandoned state it was in. And there's a project I'm working with at the moment, and it's working around peripheral sites in Edinburgh, Scotland. And we're walking through some very often unpleasant spaces that have been left where nature is thriving. They're liminal spaces, so nature has been left alone. And the walks themselves that we've been doing, they really ignite a lot of discomfort in people. But it's very interesting because it's parts of ourself that are reflected, I feel. The reason why we're able to, or what's happening to the planet right now, this unhealthy state we're in, is often around how we feel about ourselves. It's this mirroring. So there needs to be a individual experience of healing in nature before we can begin to even think about helping what's outside of ourselves. So ecotherapy very much looks at that, the individual first, how you feel, and then move out with that and expand out with that to connect. And I think that, we were talking about questions and asking questions today, and I'm really interested in how we can cultivate care for ourselves as well as our environment, the two together at the same time, because I don't believe that they're separate from one another. So I think moving forward, really, the project that we had a link with the conference. We were doing periphery with the conference, and that was so interesting to hear people's stories of where they were walking through abandoned sites and what they found, and the potential within some of these sites, the potential within areas that are overlooked. And when we begin to look at those parts, we can also look at the parts of ourselves that we overlook. So it's this interrelation, really, that ecotherapy threads itself through, and in much of the work you're already all doing as well. It's woven through your projects already, I feel.
Stephanie, in these areas of past wounds, do you think that people should interfere to try to make them better aesthetically or even naturally? Or do you think that should leave nature take its course and regenerate itself?
Do you mean the spaces themselves, the sites themselves?
Yes, the sites, like all the abandoned factory sites and that sort of wounds in the landscape.
Well, the project at the moment, Periphery, we didn't interfere when we were there. There was a little bit of responsiveness while we were there, but most was encouraging conversation and how we felt in that space and the impending changes, because often in these sites they're liminal for a time. Nature begins to thrive, habitats begin to form, wildlife is
I like the use
everywhere.
the word liminal. You use it, and I quite like it. It's almost philosophical. Yes.
I refer to it as liminal thriving in these spaces, and they're often very unsafe as well, because they're perfect for big developments, big commercial developments, and that's what's happening in Edinburgh right now. There are so many of these beautiful spaces, but they're being swept up for commercial use. And so there is a political aspect to the project as well. It didn't begin very political, but it has, because it always does when you're walking in an urban environment. So it is very much around creating conversation while they're in that state, while nature's in that state in those spaces. But whether or not we're able to protect them is another thing, and a very difficult thing.
It has to do with politics a lot, and it has to do with politics of not just governments, but also big multinationals. And then is where each one of us, if we are all together, we can say no, and they can listen to us. But we need to be big in numbers, otherwise they will just do whatever they want to do. Like in Prespes, we were there yesterday and the days before, and this is a Natura protected area. Natura is the organization in Europe that protects places of unparalleled natural beauty and importance. And obviously, the big companies that didn't mind that, they found their ways around legal matters, and they decided to clear parts of the forest and put massive windmills, which is, it's a big issue in itself of green energy, and how to deal with this issue of green energy, and sometimes how green is this green energy. So it was a big discussion, but people came and talked to us. There was a major law suit was taking place at that time. So yes, sometimes things are happening for us without us, and that's how it's the case in most of the situations. So
can I just say one quick thing? Just as an ecologist, one of the things that this field has come to realize is that nature has the capacity to heal itself in ways that we can't even really comprehend. Her capacity to heal is vast. That's not to say that we should just get out of the way and we should participate, but I think also there is a little bit of hope here in that it's just so much more immense than we know. And the other thing, Steph, is that when you were saying how, ecotherapy is this sort of personal act, it's an act of personal care. The other good news is that that's really all we need to do. I think when you do engage with nature in this therapeutic way, you get immediate benefits that you can feel right away, and they'll work on us on this intimate individual level. And then what nature does is replicate that well-being more broadly. And so instead of having to always think that we need to solve these problems from the top with policy and politics and all that, it's really about just that small little act of self-care and letting it grow on its own, because the mechanisms for that are in nature all around.
And let's open our panel more and go to Simona and her idea of consilience. Tell us more about that, Simona.
Faye, we seem to have lost Simona because of a connection problem. Hope she will come back. So maybe I can come in for a moment.
So you can speak about that, and you can tell us about your multifarious practice.
Yes, I hope she will join us in a minute. And anyway, as you know, the Fred and I work very closely together, and this extended to Steph and Rich in an even more richer collaboration. But when I actually started to work together with Fred, I was living in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, and we did the first project together with music students, walking the city, trying to understand the city more in an intuitive way, creating layers of intuitive understanding of what is around us. And during that project, actually, in one of the sessions we had, the city became, in the middle of the day, became black as night, which was scary, and nobody was understanding what's happening. And then we heard shortly after that the blackness of the sky was the ashes of the Amazon burning. The Amazon is 3,000 kilometers, 3,000 miles away. So then this triggered something, and that led eventually in the months and then the year after for Fred and me to start our initiative Supercluster. Supercluster that wants to make people aware through locative media, through the use of the locative practices, using your phone, using maps, to make aware that we need another form of knowledge, a more connected way of knowledge. And we need another way of connection, a connection with the place. So what we actually do is bringing people together from all over the world. And we ask them to think about what is happening around us, think about this, and try to find solutions on a very gentle, on a very kind way, and then bring these solutions into interactions with what is around us. We started to talk about water. Actually, your name is so much a body of water as well. The Mar is like for sea. So then, we actually, Fred and I, we started to work together in a project that was so much to do with fire, with the violence of fire. And some people say that now we don't live anymore in the era of Anthropocene, we live in the era of Pyrocene, because the planet is burning, our house is burning, the earth is burning, and to become a body of water is more than important than ever. To being impressed by around this water that connects not only people with the landscape, but connects as well 3 countries that is so symbolical for fluidity, for having no borders, for connection. with what is around us, without any separation between what we are, the modern human world, and us. And this brought us eventually as well to a project we're doing now in Australia, which is called Meeting the Waters, where we invite artists, and you are all very much invited to participate, to come together in September, in the middle of September to October, to actually to think about that, how we relate to water, how do we relate to the place where we are, how we relate to the burning planet, and to create together locative works of art. And that want to be more than just an aesthetical reflection, but that want to change something, to transform something. By transforming, first of all, the state of our minds, or like Rich calls it so beautiful, the climate of our minds. We bring people together online, which does, like we are today, which has the power of bringing people from many places and from many the different places, from the north, from the south, from the east, from the west, all together to join, to gather, to actually to almost to do a walk together for change, to start a movement for change. And one of the elements of what we do is actually that we are and we become a community, a strong community, by bringing together the old traditions, like the old traditions of storytelling, sharing of our care for what is around us, with new technologies like online platforms, like locative media, and to do this through one of the beautiful concepts that arose into the Oika, the Earth stories. Earth stories are stories that connect you in a very simple way. What is a story about how you are connected with your environment around you, and how this happens actually every day in your daily environment. Because ecology is not about, as like I said before, or to care about the environment. It's not about the big changes. It's about the small ones that we experience and do every day. So that's a bit where Fred and I are going to, and hope to go with you together.
Could I add something to it, Gert? In relation with relationship to body of water, truth the sound walk, and talking about artistic endeavors or artistic processes, they're so important too, because through the artistic process or sound walks or whatever you call it, we also develop empathy, and not only empathy with the entire environment around us. I remember that while walking the 6 kilometers that this river, that's like the length of the river is like 6 kilometers. I reflected on so many things. Like some parts were so easy to access, but in some other parts were so difficult and dangerous. And I started thinking, how do we perceive an expression of life? And it has to do with how accessible that is for us, or how far away, or how much we understand it. So by walking, we also understand the history of the expressions of life. In this moment, I was learning the history of the river, what happened to the river before. I started researching about what was the river before, before 2021, where was the river before? Because the relationship that we have with the river comes from the expansion of the city. But what happened with that river before that, when the river was becoming a river? And it's so incredible when I started walking and I visited some of the sources of the river, because this river has many sources, and I went to 2 different main sources. And one of those sources is on the a bedrock, and it's right below a building. So the beginning of the river, it's like below a construction, and that goes to what Faye was mentioning of industries and whatnot, like how the construction industry is killing the natural path of rivers. And then I went to the other source of this river, and that was below a church. Like it's completely sank below another construction. So then no wonders why the city gets flooded once in a while. And then it says, no, the river is flooding the city. But we are actually in the middle of the path, the natural path of water. So we also have to start thinking and rethinking which language we use to refer to certain things, because not taking the blame or not taking the responsibility of certain things will not change things. Like instead of saying, oh, it's our responsibility as a construction industry that we build this thing in the middle of the path, it's like it's easier to say, oh, it's the river's fault that we are getting flooded and our houses, are getting full of water. So that's another thing. And empathy is a big part of these relationships. And I know that we had to create questions at the end of our discussions. So one of the questions that I have is, how does our relationship with bodies of water speak to us and speak about us? Like, how do we see a body of water, how damaged it is, and how are we as society damaged as the river or not? And then the other question is, do we include bodies of water as part of our communities? So those are two of the questions that I would have, and those are some of the questions that accompany me through the sound walk along the Rio Matasnillo walk.
Very important questions. I think as our body itself is 70% water, and we seemingly have lost touch with water, rivers, lakes, and seas as well. Here in Greece, the Mediterranean Sea is a very enclosed sea. It's almost like a lake, and it's very diverse. It's got an amazing biodiversity of species, and but we seemingly we don't respect those waters that are so important for the circulation of water around the world. So very important questions. Yeah, Mar, thank you. Maybe Simona is back? Not yet? No. Maybe Inez would like to tell us her thoughts or her relation to water even.
Thank you. I would. First of all, thank you, because each one of you presenters, honestly, I've had goosebumps because you have spoken deeply into my soul. And that is so very important. Yes, my relationship with the very essence of the stuff that is being presented and discussed here is total. Once I did deep listening, I went deeper and deeper, and I listened deeper and deeper to precisely these issues, environmental issues. And as you said, Faye, and I also love that, our internal environment, starting with that, because we always have to start with and from that. And so I believe I have grown in this endeavor of understanding and going deeper, and I created something called CREA, which is creative attentive, and it is precisely around these issues where I myself and a colleague bring people together to be creative, but to be creative from that depth of understanding where we are understanding our journey, or at least questioning this journey, this path, this temporality, and from that premises of the environment, Mother Earth. How can we separate ourselves from ourselves? We are nature. We are nature. So we cannot, these frontiers or barriers or partitions, they really are ridiculous, actually, because we are one. We are in essence one, and so that's where I am. That's where I am, and thus I am 100% with you, every single one of you who have actually, oh wow, my God, so wonderful and so beautiful. So I'm deeply grateful. So beautiful to be amongst yourselves, because that gives me enormous hope to precisely, have this force, not against, but this force to be open, to be shared with others, and to bring that consciousness into being. Thank you.
Inés, what you said is very important, especially the part about being creative and at the same time attentive, because sometimes we get carried away by creating, but we don't listen, we're not attentive to the needs of our creation even, or at what the other people are creating. So here it's beautiful how we were very attentive, the one with the other, and going to Chris, and all about knowing about the self first, and secondly knowing about the others, and then knowing about nature. And as Ritz, he would like to know also your personal story of these 3 steps from your baptizing to 2020, as I see. Give us your lights, Chris.
Yes, I love it when you phrase it like that. To give you my light. That light is a reflection of the light that I see in each of you. So thank you for even framing it like that. Before I give you those steps, I wanted to connect to something that Steph said, and when she said that it didn't start out to be political. When you said that, I chuckled because I'm looking around just at this panel discussion, and I was in the London Urban Tree Festival probably about, I don't know what it was, back in May or June. Steph, I think that's when I first met you. I'm not for certain. But in those spaces, I am rarely represented. So my presence here is really starting to become that political statement of representation of Black women in green spaces. So having this platform to share about eco-spirituality is personal to me, but at the same time, as Steph was saying, it kind of becomes political by granting a new level of permission to explore what representation can truly look like in these spaces. So I just want to tie that into Steph, and then I'll get right back to what you were saying, Faye. That this walk has been intentional, it has been divine, it has been guided, and a lot of that was revealed over this cross-country tour, or I call it a spiritual sojourn, from June 28th to the present. And part of this started back before I left, when I was visited by Luna moths. So this goes back to that permission and listening to the language of the landscape. And Rich, I watched your video and I was thinking about the communication that you had there. I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one that has these relationships in nature. But I was visited by 3 Luna moths during the day. There was one on my window. There was one on the, and this was all on my deck, one on a bench, and then one on the floor. And when I saw the first one, I'm like, stay there, stay there. I'm gonna capture your picture. You are so beautiful. And when I got out there, she was still there. I took the picture, and then I noticed that there was a second one and a third one. And I'm like, I don't know why they are all here, but there's something spiritual about these 3 Luna moths. I started to Google it and do some deeper dives into what that means. And it is about a spiritual connection around restoration, because a Luna moth has a very short lifespan. If you stop to, I don't want to bore you with this, but it takes them about 9 months to be here, 9 to 10 months, and they're only alive for 7 to 10 days. So think about us. It takes us 9 months to enter this world, and our time is limited, and it's all about how we live that dash from the time that we were born to the time that we take our final breath. Fortunately, we all have more than 7 to 10 days, but these 3 Luna moths decided to choose me, decided to choose my space for a place of restoration. And when I was observing them, I saw that one left probably about a couple hours later, because I was still capturing pictures. The other one left later on that night. And that last one, which was the first one that I saw on the window, it was standing there, or it was posing there, but it felt like it was dying. I said, if you are dead in the morning, I promise to honor your life. Relationship and communication is 2 ways. They communicated to me, I'm communicating to them. I said, I will honor your life through taxidermy. I will not just dismiss you. I will find a way to preserve you and honor this space that you've created. The next morning, she was still there. I took her picture one last time. I'm uploading all this to Instagram and my website. And I said, when I come back from walking the dogs, if you're still there, taxidermy it is. And she was gone. So what I received in that space, and I share with people right now, is that those Luna moths identified something within me and my space, that it was safe, that it was a place for healing, a place for restoration, that they only had 7 days, 7 to 10 days to live, but they picked 24 hours to be with me. So that communication said to me that my divine assignment is to create and hold spaces for self-restoration and healing. So whether that healing comes from this communication, whether the healing comes from your connection to a body of water, or that healing comes from a walk in nature, that my position is to grant that healing through restoration in nature. So that's the light that I'm here to share. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but I definitely have to share the story about the Luna moths.
It did, and it reminded me of Rich's story of the fish and the eye of the fish. And Rich, can you tell us more about this beautiful story?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll just quickly. It was back when I was, kind of feels like a previous life, when I had become a commercial fisherman. Which, and anyway, to make a long story short, I had spent my childhood fishing and handling fish and creatures from the sea. And then as I grew older, and I became a commercial fisherman, and I killed this just gigantic fish, a bluefin tuna that's like the size of a big sofa. And something happened where it communicated something that I felt. I didn't understand it at the time. I certainly didn't understand how or what it was saying. And then it kind of set me on a path, though, to understand how that communication can happen. And I think I figured it out. I used science to figure out how that could happen, which is not to demystify it, because it's still mysterious. All of it's mysterious. But what it was saying, and I think this is actually relevant to the river question, what it was saying was, don't forfeit the child's experience of the world in order to commoditize or commodify the river or the fish or the world or the butterflies or the land. That's what it was saying. That was the kind of the message that I finally figured out. And it was really a reminder not to let the child die completely in the adult. You know, that's what it was really about. Yeah, those Luna moths are magical. Not just because they're big and dramatic and gorgeous, but because they have an energy of it. And Chris, by the way, there's so many ways that we're just now beginning to understand how you and the moths could have a biomolecular exchange so that they could know your inner state of being just as you could know their inner state of being. And so we could get into the chemistry and the biology of all that, but it doesn't really matter. What matters is the impact of that conversation. The fact that, you know, the relationship that emerged from that experience is far more important than any scientific truth about how it could have happened.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed, Rich. And I'm glad you said it like that, because working on this PhD in art education is not about the letters that I get at the end, but the spaces that I create for learning in between. So thank you for adding that confirmation to the way I was feeling.
Yeah, every bird, every insect, every plant, every life form has so much to teach us. We can learn so much. For example, it's amazing how much I learned from spiders. I would not have imagined to learn so much from spiders. You know, so when I went at the hut, the spiders were living there, and I've spent a lot of time looking and trying to understand how they are living, their relationship with the place. And really, every life form can teach you so much. It's amazing. It's amazing, really.
But Fred, another part of that around permission is giving ourselves permission to slow down to be present, slow down to listen. And part of this cross-country journey is about starting each morning by saying that I empty myself, that I am open to receive the lessons and the language of the land and whatever is meant to be poured into me. So yes, we need that.
Spider are the perfect example, because, you know, spider can stay without moving during days and days and days, you know, for energy conservation. And what they do is they listen, because spiders don't have an ear. They use the web as an ear to feel the vibrations. So, you know, yeah, I believe they are big masters about slow down and deep listening, for example.
Could
Maybe
I just
Geert.
No. Sorry.
Esther.
Could I just add some little thing, which is precisely that. You have to slow down, as Pauline Olivero says. You slow down, and when you have really, really slowed down, you slow down even more. You know, because every step that we take, as you say, Chris, we have to be really present. And in every step that we take, we have to connect deeply with Gaia, with Mother Earth. And we have to really root down. And that's how Ma then has done our piece and so on and so forth, each one of you. It's in there, in that deep listening and deep rooting. So yeah, I have to say this. I loved what you said, Chris, about the tree, because I am now listening, or trying to really listen to trees, because they have so much to tell us. So
Lovely. We're supposed to come with one question, and my question would have tied into that. What are you hearing? So just think about that.
Yeah, maybe Mar could tell us more about being in the city and how can, via deep listening, can slow down the time within a city, within the fast pace,
Yeah, well, with deep
broken
listening,
down.
we basically, what is suggested that you walk really slow. Basically, like your feet become your ears, like Pauline used to say. And deep listening asks you to listen with your entire body, not only with your ears, but like listen with your eyes, with your nose, it's like a multisensorial experience. And that was such a beautiful thing to do because in the sound walks before, I was focusing so hard on listening only. But when I let myself connect with my other senses through this particular sound walk, I could actually follow the river with my nose and also by the humidity of when you get close to a stream of water. And in this city, I guess it happens to all the cities, but in this city, the urban rivers smell terrible. I mean, it's like such a horrendous smell. But through this sound walk, I connected so deeply with the river that I started to feel like the river. That smell didn't feel as strong, as before, because I was smelling from a different place. I wasn't smelling from a judgmental place. I was feeling the river like a whole through all my senses. So that was something new that I found and I felt in this sound walk, and even more in this city. Because, for example, if we walk around the city, we cannot listen to these rivers, to these Roman rivers. So smelling them is one way to know that they exist and they are in the city. It's like, hey, I am here. That's like the voice of the river somehow in this city. But it's perceived like a bad voice, something that we don't want to have close. But when we start thinking about the multisensorial dimensions of ourselves, something starts to shift, like something starts to change, just like what Chris was mentioning or what Ines was also mentioning. Something changes, and it changes so fast just by connecting and understanding and connecting through affect with these bodies that connect with ourselves. And just like Chris was mentioning, and that she was talking with these Luna moths, I happened to end up speaking with the river and basically asking for not forgiveness, but just to be super humble in front of the river for all the harm that we do to the river. And at the end, my sound walk ended up being like a ritual. So I kind of left like certain things in some parts of the river so I could actually give a gift to that body of water that is basically enclosed in this city and is hidden in this city, and it's misunderstood by this city just by the human action. So it was such a beautiful experience, and I was so affected. Like I had to take a couple of days to just digest all of that information, because it was very powerful. Like once we really connect, something starts to open up, and it can sound weird, but when we go through that experience, it's so real that it's unreal. It's like it's so unreal that I'm listening and I am talking to a river, because I never thought about it before. And being grateful for this river, for still flowing and have the power of flowing, even though all the circumstances that the river has gone through. So the resilience that river is showing us and teaching us it's great. It's amazing. So, going back to that question that was like going around my head, it's like, okay, if I am right in front of this river, what is this river talking about me? How can we or how could we let this happen at some point? What can we do? Like, how can we do to connect better with other bodies of water? This is only one river out of the 8 urban rivers that the city has. So those connections, and now I'm thinking about like going through like the other urban rivers. Some of them are very like highly complicated places. Like I would say some of the parts are in the dangerous places. So I would have to like map out how I am going to, walk those rivers and go through, the process and see what the other rivers have to say, because at the end it's listening to the river. I'm walking, but I'm actually like listening and trying to understand what the river is and how do we connect, at the end.
I wanted to connect my conversation with a very interesting point of view of Chris about healing. Healing as a process of returning on our place, on nature. Hello?
Simona, you have a very bad connection. Maybe you can switch off your video. Maybe it will be better without video, if you don't mind.
Without video?
Maybe it will be better, yes.
Yeah. And now it's better?
I can hear you.
Yeah. So I will make a very, very short abstract about my Planetscape as a project and healing as a process of reintegration of humanity and getting close to plants through walking as a process of healing, and why Planetscape can be an escape of the anthropos. That means we escape our humanity by escaping in nature through walking, of course, and also as a planet escape. It's a plant escape and a planet escape because our steps through walking are the best and the more authentic communication with the frequency of the earth, and we can intermediate our dialogue with the nature and with the earth by raising our frequency and understanding the plants in their ontology. It's not just to being grateful for what we can take it from granted as raw material of plants, but to understand how they thrive and how they communicate with the whole cosmos by symbiosis, by being generous, by give themselves to all the surrounding. Doesn't matter if it's animal or human being. So I wanted to make it was a very, very big joke of my life, because when I applied for a post PhD with this project Planetscape, I was not good evaluated because they understood my title as Planet Escape. So they didn't understood the connection between writers and how we can escape the planet through literary text. But it was in fact connection with the plants. But I was grateful for this strange reading of my title. because in fact, Planetescape and Plantescape is the solution for our movements, our movement through a universal healing. We can't separate each other for our green blood, for our ancestors, for this philosophy of being generous as a best definition of thriving in a harmonious way of the universe in general. So I think Planetescape and Plantescape is a new score of our steps in nature, a score of healing, of feeling, and probably for questioning the nature in a new ways through our walking. I wanted to connect a little bit my project with this question of your walkings, because it was the definition for this year, walking as a question, and I would like to propose for the next meeting, if possible, how can we make a score of these steps on the planet, because every nation has a way of talking, but also a way of walking. So this planetary walking with the plants, with the human, with the animals, can give a new symphony, harmony, not just between mindscapes or rhetorics of our conversation, of our philosophy as a anthropocenic scenario of these times, but also we can focus on these new ways of putting together our steps in a new field, electromagnetic field that we define as light or sound or whatever, what kind of emanation of our being on the planet.
Simona, beautiful things you put on the table.
Yeah, it's strange that you can see me. I don't know if I'm afraid to put the image on because I have very bad connections here. It's a new house, a new life, and I don't know why I have this problem exactly today. I'm sorry to not put my face on the screen.
But you said everything. You talk about symphony and harmony, feeling and healing. I think that's a beautiful way to conclude our discussion tonight. I think we discussed very important issues, and as you said, Simona, it's not just rhetoric, it's also about action, and maybe at some point we can, all of us, organize a simultaneous walk for Earth. This could be a beautiful project. Maybe we need to think and get organized. I quite like action. I'm a very active person, and I think all this poetry that we generate through our studies, through our discussions and our writings, it can be beautifully put into actions, so we can combine both. Please state your final question or your final thought before we leave. And anybody else of our listeners, if they've got any questions, it'd be excellent time to phrase them now. And cheers to everybody.
Cheers. Mm-hmm. I just would like to thank you once again. I am deeply grateful to each one of you and all of you for the amazing, deep, profound and meaningful beings that you are. So thank you.
Thank you. My closing remarks will be to channel my grandma back in once again with her statement of sun is true witness. We each have 24 hours. My question is, what will you do with yours? Ashe.
Beautiful.
I would also like to say thank you one more time. Virtuality is such a beautiful thing in this time, so it wouldn't be possible without the internet being so far away. So it has been a pleasure to, listen to you and all your the love that you put in this planet. Thank you, Gerd, and thank you, Faye, for moving all this space. Really grateful, and I hope we can, meet in person, sometime and walk together.
That would be beautiful. Thank you all. You've been wonderful co-talkers, co-humans, co-walkers. Let's hope we meet in person. Let's hope we can do things for our planet. It's the only planet we've got, and it's the most beautiful one. Let's reminisce. Let's go back and think of a major walk that was that planetary walk on the moon in 1968, I think. The one before the big one, when three of them went up in the moon and they could see the Earth from the spacecraft, and it was I think it was Christmas time, and they saw the most beautiful planet of all. And what they said with the space cowboys was the first verse from creation, that when Earth was being created, and how beautiful it is with all this life, the animals and the plants and all that. And I think that was for a person that has come out of the Earth to see everything in front of you. The whole universe is unfolded, and this small rock seems so beautiful and so important. That says it all.